I love you.
Is that a...
Take them off. Do you know who he is now?
My brother.
Is this okay?
A teenage girl named Vada is groggily getting ready for school, barely staying awake in the bathroom. Once she's ready, she heads out with her best friend Nick. The two drive to school, sipping coffee and singing along to the music playing in the car. They make it to class just as the bell rings. During class, Vada receives an urgent text from her younger sister Amelia. Concerned, she asks to leave the room and steps outside to call Amelia, who reveals she's in a panic after getting her first period. Relieved that it's not something more serious, Vada reassures her that everything is fine and completely normal. They chat for a bit, with Vada calming her down, and they make plans to have dinner later and talk more about it. Afterward, Vada heads to the restroom and spots her classmate Mia, a popular girl known for her dancing talent. She slips into a stall and texts a friend to mention that Mia is in the bathroom. When Vada comes out, she compliments Mia's appearance. Just as they start chatting, gunshots suddenly echo through the school. Panicked, the two girls quickly hide in a restroom stall, terrified as the gunfire continues. Moments later, a boy named Quinton stumbles into the bathroom, covered in blood, and tells them that his older brother has been killed in the shooting. The next few minutes are filled with fear and uncertainty as the three of them endure the horrifying ordeal until the police finally arrive after the violence subsides. After the shooting, Vada becomes deeply affected and retreats into isolation. She spends most of her time alone, locking herself in her room and crying, unable to shake the memories of that terrifying day when her friends were killed. Her family grows increasingly concerned as they try to comfort her, but Vada shuts them out, barely speaking. Even Amelia, her younger sister, makes attempts to lift her spirits, but Vada remains distant, preferring solitude. One night, Mia follows Vada on Instagram and shares her phone number. Vada reaches out, and the two begin texting about how they're coping with the aftermath of the tragedy. Mia reveals that her parents are overseas in Japan, leaving her alone at home. She invites Vada over, offering her a place to talk or hang out whenever she needs it. The following morning, Vada wakes up suddenly, gasping and sweating from a nightmare. Feeling restless, she decides to meet up with Nick. Her mother, relieved to see her leave the house after days of shutting herself in, beams with happiness. To ease her mother's worries, Vada lies and says she's feeling much better. She meets Nick at a park where he tries to encourage her, suggesting that they survived for a reason and should help others by raising awareness to prevent similar tragedies. Vada, however, is too lost in her own thoughts to truly engage with what he's saying. Later, at home, Vada scrolls through Mia's Instagram, watching her dance videos while Amelia and her mother are glued to the news on TV. Impulsively, she texts Mia and decides to meet up. Telling her parents she's going to see Nick, Vada sneaks out to visit Mia instead. When she arrives, Mia welcomes her. As Vada steps inside, she notices the art scattered around, and Mia explains that her parents are artists who travel frequently. They laugh and bond over how different Mia seems on Instagram compared to real life, with Vada admitting she's been watching her videos. The conversation shifts, and they begin to talk about the shooting. Vada opens up about the nightmares that have been haunting her. She also mentions that she's planning to attend Quinton's brother's funeral the next day, and Mia offers to join her for support. At the funeral, both girls pay their respects, and Quinton thanks them for coming, visibly moved by their presence. After getting home, Vada starts looking through photos of the victims, and her sadness deepens. She spends her time crying, often shaking with fear as she relives the tragedy. The next morning, Amelia tries to reach out, suggesting they go to Starbucks together, but Vada turns her down and continues to ignore her, shutting herself off completely. Vada and Mia begin spending more time together. One day, while they're eating, Vada asks about Mia's relationship with her parents, curious about how often they travel and how they treat her. Vada soon realizes that Mia, despite her wealth, is lonely. Her parents aren't around much, and dancing, which Mia loves, has taken a back seat since the shooting. When Mia asks about Vada's family, Vada admits that her parents are supportive, but she keeps a lot from them because they get overly worried and stressed. That evening, the two girls watched a movie together at Mia's house. Mia starts to nod off, and as Vada prepares to leave, Mia asks her to stay until she falls asleep, saying it helps her feel safe. Vada agrees and waits quietly until Mia drifts off. On her way home later, Vada calls Nick to apologize for not meeting up with him lately. She mentions that she was with Mia, and Nick is surprised. Vada explains that she's been having a hard time dealing with everything. When she gets home, she watches one of Nick's videos about his activism against gun violence and his efforts to make schools safer. The next morning, Vada wakes up from another nightmare. Nick calls her, telling her that he's planning to go back to school. Vada's mother, Patricia, overhears the conversation and later asks Vada if she's ready to return to school. She reassures her daughter that no matter what she decides, both she and Vada's father will be there to support her. Patricia also gently suggests that Vada see a therapist to help her work through the trauma. Vada agrees and visits a therapist named Anna, arranged by her mother. At first, Vada tries to keep things light, joking and laughing with Anna, but she soon grows nervous. With encouragement, Vada opens up, claiming that she has a good handle on her emotions. However, Anna, sensing deeper issues, advises that Vada needs to truly confront and process her feelings to heal. She gives Vada a worksheet to help her express her emotions. After the session, Vada's mom picks her up. Vada casually mentions that Anna thought she was smart and funny, but she also tells her mom she doesn't want to go back to therapy. Later that day, Vada gets a message from Quinton, thanking her again for attending his brother's funeral. He asks if she's free to meet up, and they arrange to meet at a coffee shop. When they see each other, Quinton is visibly struggling with his emotions. Vada comforts him with a hug, assuring him that things will eventually get better. Vada heads over to Mia's place, where they smoke weed and drink together. Afterward, Vada goes home, feeling ravenous, and starts rummaging for food. Her mom catches up with her and voices her frustration, pointing out how distant Vada has become from the family. She also urges her to face reality and return to school, warning that avoiding it will only make things harder. Irritated, Vada storms off to her room. She later calls Mia, venting about the pressure her mom is putting on her to go back to school. Mia tells Vada that her parents have given her the option to be homeschooled indefinitely, so she doesn't feel the same urgency. The next morning, after some convincing from her mom, Vada reluctantly goes back to school. Upon arrival, they are subjected to metal detectors and survival drills, meant to prepare them for future threats. But the overwhelming experience becomes too much for Vada, and she leaves the room, unable to bring herself to re-enter the bathroom where she once hid during the shooting. While walking home, the sudden clatter of a can startles her so badly that she loses control and wets herself. That night, despite everything, Vada puts on a normal face during dinner, hiding her inner turmoil. The following day, Vada, desperate to numb her emotions, buys ecstasy from a drug dealer to help her get through the school day. High in class, she chews on her pen until ink covers her face. She excuses herself to leave the classroom, but she can barely walk, losing her balance as she tries to go down the stairs. She texts Nick for help, but before he can arrive, she tumbles down the stairs. Nick finds her in a disoriented state and rushes her away before anyone else notices. Later that evening, Vada receives a call from Quinton, who tells her she had been sending him texts while she was high. Wanting to distract herself, Vada invites him over to watch a movie. Her family grows curious and nosy, but she pleads with them to give her some privacy. Quinton arrives, and they spend a nice evening together, though it's cut short when he gets a message about a family emergency and has to leave abruptly. After Quinton leaves, Vada decides to sneak out again. She tells her parents she'll be studying at Nick's house, but instead, she heads over to Mia's. The two start talking about relationships over drinks, and before long, they get high and start dancing in the street. Later, they return to Mia's place, lie down next to each other on the floor, and continue chatting. Their conversation leads to an intimate moment between them. The next morning, Vada wakes up early and quietly slips out, while Mia is still asleep. When she gets home, her family is furious. They had been trying to reach her all night, worried sick. Vada tries to calm her mother down, telling her she was at Nick's house, but soon realizes that Nick has also been looking for her. Left with no choice, Vada admits that she had been at Mia's, drunk. Her mother is shocked and disbelieving. Later, Vada meets up with Nick, but he's clearly upset. When she confronts him about telling her mom where she was, Nick explains that he was genuinely concerned. The last time he saw her, she was high, and he feared she might harm herself. He tells her that he's been trying to reach out for weeks, but Vada has been avoiding him. He accuses her of not making any real effort to get better, instead choosing to spend her time getting high with Mia. Frustrated, the two argue, and Vada storms off, angry and overwhelmed. Vada later meets up with Quinton, venting about how Nick just doesn't seem to understand her anymore. Quinton listens sympathetically but reminds her that Nick has been struggling too, doing everything he can to raise awareness about gun violence. After talking for a while, Vada feels slightly better and, in a moment of vulnerability, leans in to kiss Quinton. He gently pulls away, explaining that while he cares about her, he isn't ready for a deeper emotional connection right now. Embarrassed by her misstep, Vada quickly leaves. That night, overwhelmed with emotion, Vada breaks down in her room. Amelia quietly enters and curls up beside her, sharing how she has been feeling guilty for distracting Vada right before the shooting. Amelia believes that her call is why Vada left the classroom and put herself in harm's way, and she thinks this is the reason Vada has been avoiding her. Touched by her sister's honesty, Vada realizes how much her own trauma has affected Amelia. She reassures her sister, telling her it was never her fault. In fact, the only thing Vada could think about during the shooting was protecting Amelia. The two sisters embrace, tears flowing as they finally reconnect. The following day, Vada goes with her father to the top of a hill, where they let out all their pent-up frustrations by screaming into the open air. In that moment, Vada admits how much she had been keeping inside, and for the first time starts to feel a sense of release. Feeling lighter, she decides to visit Mia later that day. When she arrives at Mia's house, she finds her unconscious in the sauna, surrounded by empty wine bottles. Mia, waking groggily, admits she thought Vada hated her after their intimate moment. Vada assures her that's far from the truth. She doesn't regret what happened, and it won't affect their friendship. The two agree to move past it. Mia then shares that she's going back to dancing. The next day, Vada returns to her therapy session with Anna, and this time, she makes real progress. She talks about how she misses Nick, acknowledging how much their friendship means to her, and for the first time, she allows herself to cry openly about the shooting. It's a step toward healing. After the session, Vada has a heart-to-heart with her mother, apologizing for shutting her out. During their conversation, Vada also opens up about her relationship with Mia, including what had happened between them. Her mother listens, offering support. The movie concludes with Vada waits outside Mia's dance class and they exchange texts. But just as things seem to be looking up, Vada receives a news alert on her phone. There's been another school shooting in Ohio, and 12 students have been killed. She stares at her phone in disbelief, the weight of the news hitting her hard. Overcome with emotion, she begins to hyperventilate. The movie ends with Vada spiraling into a full-blown panic attack, her sobs echoing as she struggles to breathe. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.